Welcome to Layers of Communication with your host, Lydia Taggart. Life presents experiences that add layers to who we are and how we see the world, affecting how we communicate. Lydia is here to take apart the layers and create new ways to connect and build relationships. So now, please welcome the host of Layers of Communication, your core boss, Lydia Taggart.
Hi, welcome to Layers of Communication. I'm your host, Lydia Taggart, and this is the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. We welcome your calls today at 1-866-451-1451. Okay, the topic today is questions and resentment. And also, what do we do with that resentment? How do we get rid of it? Have you ever felt like somebody resented you? Here's the bigger question. Have you ever resented someone else? This is like everybody. Everybody has to deal with resentment in some form, but we don't usually recognize it. I don't believe that resentment is ever an intention that anybody would set intentionally. We just have these experiences that they happen as part of life, right? Nearly every one of us has an experience with resentment, either receiving or giving, or usually both. We probably have both experiences in our life, right? We resent our supervisors, our boss, our coworkers. No one is exempt. And the saddest part is when we resent our family. I found a time when I realized that I was resenting my children. I was resenting that they came all at once, and I had two, and then the four came, right? They didn't all come out at once. Anyway, my quads, I chose to have them, but then a few years later, I was like, man, that's a lot of work. I can't do what I want to. And it was I found myself resenting my kids. Do you ever find a choice that you have made that you want, and you decide, yes, I'm in on this, and then you find that you resent that decision? So what do we do about that? I did not want to resent my kids. No way, that's not what I wanted, right? So I have found that quality questions, can change our point of view. We have this layer of experience added onto us that we see through, right? It affects our point of view, and we can change our point of view. And so the questions that we ask, when we have quality questions, that makes it possible to love and enjoy the people again, or at least forgive them and understand them. What we really are seeking for is understanding. When we have a greater understanding, everything else kind of smooths out. We're like, oh, I was working with one of my clients this week, and we were talking about this point of view change and asking questions. And he asked me questions in response, and we had this great conversation. I just saw his mind blow over and over and over again. He's like, what? Really? Oh. And at one point he said, I need to rethink my whole childhood now. And that's what we need to do sometimes when we learn something that we didn't understand before. It changes our entire life view, right? So I found these questions, and I asked these questions to myself. I asked these questions about my kids and about our situation, and it brought me to a place where I totally love and appreciate my kids again. And it wasn't really very time consuming. It was a lot faster. The whole worry about it, the anxiety, that's all like it's pretend. Once you just start working on something, all of the anxiety just goes away. There's no reason for it. The worry is about what ifs, not what's real. Okay, and what if can be one of the quality questions if you're guiding it the direction you want to go. What if something really awesome happened? We usually, as humans, lean more towards the what if something bad happens. Well, what if something really awesome happened? What if you really are talented and awesome at what you're trying to do? What if you get up in front of people and you make a mistake, but you live through it anyway? What if it's not really going to kill you? It just feels like it might. Because usually those anxieties, they're just pretend. They don't usually, actually, I've never heard of somebody getting up and doing something embarrassing and really, truly dying from it. We just carry on, right? So what if can be a good, powerful question if we direct it in the right way. One of my other favorite questions was, why? But we got to be careful about why, because sometimes we get stuck in the why instead of what do we do about it. You want to know why to understand why, and it makes it easier to deal with what to do about it. But you don't really even need the why. Here's my analogy for whys. And so if we're feeling like we're in a pit, right? We're depressed, we're sad, we're resenting, we're stuck, whatever it is, we're down in this pit. It doesn't really matter why we're down there. We just want to get out. We got to find how to get out, things to do to get out of the pit. Once we're out and we're on the other side, maybe a bridge was there and we missed the first step of the bridge. Maybe somebody pushed us down in the pit. Maybe we stumbled on a rock. It doesn't matter. We're in the pit and we need to get out. So how do we get out? We look for ways, and we have to take action. There might be somebody on the other side trying to throw us a rope to climb up. There might be a ladder nearby that we can find. But if we're just sitting there going, oh man, somebody pushed me down, I'm in the pit, we're not going to be able to find the ladder and climb out. We're just going to be stuck down there. So we can ask questions and be curious about what's around us. One of my favorite experiences yesterday was with my son. We had an experience. He's a teenager. We have experiences once in a while, right? And he was noticeably distraught. He was totally different in his demeanor. He was quiet. He was withdrawn. And this is not my autistic one. This is my verbal one. And at night, we had our PPI with him, our personal parent interview, which we try to do weekly so he has his time, right? And each of our kids get this moment with us every week so they can ask their questions. We set up this environment where they know they can come and ask us questions. And so I was really looking forward to this time of asking questions with my distraught boy here. And so we start our meeting, and it's going kind of not real smooth. He was kind of frustrated still, and I was like, what is the problem? What's going on? But I kind of knew what the problem was because he didn't like something that I had done earlier. And I could tell he was kind of resenting our experience that we had earlier in the day. And the question that he asked was, why did you act that way, Mom? Instead of being accusing and blaming, and I know he's having those emotions inside of him. And a lot of my clients, we have these emotions, right? Emotions are part of Earth life. If you're human, you have emotions. And our experience here is to learn how to express those emotions and process them. So he asked, why? He didn't say, you did this, you did that, rawr. He said, why? And then we got to have this great conversation. Okay, we understand why. Now what do we do about it? But if you're in that pit and you don't know why, you don't have to know why in order to do something to climb out of the pit. And when you get up on the other side, then you can turn around and say, what happened? So I don't want to trip on that pebble again. Or if that person comes across the bridge, I'm not going to let them push me in the pit again. When we're up out of the pit, then we have clarity of vision that we can see what to do to avoid it in the future. That's the only reason we want to look back and see why often when there's a big problem. All right, we're going to take a short break. This is Layers of Communication on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Call in at 1-866-451-1451. We'd love to visit with you today. I'm your host, Lydia Taggart. Welcome back to TuneIn Radio and the BBM Global Network. I'm your host, Lydia Taggart, and this is Layers of Communication. We welcome your calls today at 1-866-451-1451. Before the break, we're talking about getting out of the pit and avoiding resentment by asking quality questions like what if, but making sure that it's directed in a positive way and why, instead of jumping to blame and accusing. And this is part of following the thread of a conversation. If you listen, we have an expert with us today. Tyler Watson is an expert on following the thread. And let me read you what his bio is. It's pretty exciting. But most exciting for me is that Tyler's been my friend for several years, and I love his family. So Tyler J. Watson is the president of the Freedom Catalyst and founder of Enrollment Masters. He is the author of The Enrollment Effect and is a sought-after international speaker and coach who has shared the stage with Sharon Letcher, Dan Clark, Richard Paul Evans, and a lot of others. Most importantly, he is a passionate father and husband who loves to serve in his community with over 30,000 hours of personal coaching on relationships and business strategies. He has impacted people worldwide to truly master the art of communication and enroll high-paying clients. Tyler may look like if he got braces, he could star on High School Musical. This is precisely what makes his message so powerful and unique. His mission is to help entrepreneurs, coaches, speakers, and sales professionals remove judgment and fear to live the life they have dreamed of but never knew how to create. Because of his unique and powerful ability to help others remove mental and emotional obstacles, significantly increase performance in their business and personal life, and step into a place of transformation and passion, he has been called a mix between Houdini and Tony Robbins. And I'm so excited to have Tyler here with us today. He really, truly does have some magical tips for us on following the thread. Welcome, Tyler.
Thank you, Lydia. How's it going?
Doing really great. I'm excited for all the holidays and everything going on, and I'm super excited that our air cleared out this week. I'm thinking if we could just clear out the mucky air. We finally got a storm, and if we can clear out the mucky air in our relationships, it just lets the sunshine. I just love waking up and having clear air.
Me too. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, what got you into this space of being an expert on communicating and building relationships?
So what really got me into being an expert, well, let me just define what an expert is, because I believe that many people are experts in fields that they just don't own. Like, yes. I believe you're an expert as a parent who has raised 4 kids, it's like at the same time, and most people just don't get that. Most people just don't own up. It's just part of life. And most of my life, I didn't realize that I was an expert in communication. In fact, I hated communication. And that's how a lot of our expertise manifests. When I grew up, around the age of 12, my parents got a divorce. And from that moment, I had always grown up in a very good household, and my parents raised me very well. And yet, the moment of divorce seemed to turn my whole world upside down. It was as if everything I had been taught about family, about how we're supposed to be happy and together forever, everything just shattered. And I took on this role almost as it's my duty as the oldest son to save everybody in my home. So my mom, she ended up going through 3 more divorces, my dad through another. And I felt like I wanted to mend it and be the glue to hold everything together. So I would be the go-to, and my mom would tell me, hey, go tell your dad this, and I would do it, and my dad would say, no, go tell your mom this. And I kind of made myself this mediator, and it was my own doing because of this feeling of I needed to save the relationships. But during that process, I really learned how I didn't like talking, and I hated everybody who told me things because my mom would say it was green, my dad would say it was red, and I figured out it was orange. so it was just this. I learned to not trust anybody, and it was all because of my interpretations. I love my parents. My parents are amazing. We have great relationships now. Yet during the time, I didn't communicate what was really going on. And so from that moment, as I started to grow a company, I struggled to enroll clients. I didn't like the communication process. And in my marriage, my wife's love language, guess what it is? It was talking. And that was the very thing that I feared and that I hated. And yet I was actually good at it if I could forgive and if I could see the good through the experiences that I was given. So as I did go on that journey of forgiveness and understanding, I started to use the very skills that I would communicate with my parents with to enroll clients and to communicate with my spouse. And as I started to study more on how to communicate, asking questions, the power of listening, it became very natural to me because it was something I had done since I was 12. I just put up so many walls around it that I didn't feel like I was good at it at all. In fact, there was a test I took on asking questions, and I failed it miserably. I failed on communicating and talking with clients. It was, it scaled you red as terrible, orange as proficient, and green as you're good. And I scored red in communicating my message, asking questions, and listening to people. It was all red. Yet as I started to understand that this gift I was given, instead of avoiding it, that I was actually an expert. And I was good at it, and I could help people with it. Then I became very good at it, and I started to create a multiple six-figure company through sharing these same principles that I feared my whole life. So I believe when you say what helped you get to this expertise point, and I believe that we're all experts in something. Our life experience creates us an expert. And we don't need a certificate. We don't need, someone to say, you're an expert. I think that every single one of us is an expert in the field.
Oh, that's beautiful. I have an experience that I'll share with you with one of my clients yesterday. Actually, not yesterday, this last week. I had an experience with one of my clients, just exactly that, accepting your gift and owning up to it. We'll share more about that after the break. I'm your host, Lydia Taggart, on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. This is Layers of Communication. We're visiting today with Tyler Watson. Stay close. Welcome back to TuneIn Radio and the BBM Global Network. I'm your host, Lydia Taggart, and this is Layers of Communication. We welcome your calls today at 1-866-451-1451. If you'd like to join us in this conversation, we would love to have you join us. Before the break, we're talking with Tyler Watson about accepting and not avoiding our gifts. One of my clients he's kind of extra emotional. And through this, he has started distancing himself, trying to not feel emotions because it's embarrassing if he breaks out and cries and stuff. And one of the things we were working on this last week was feelings are meant to be felt. And I know, Tyler, you were saying that your interpretation was based on how you felt about the situation with your parents divorcing and the communicating. And feelings are so important, but I think that's really key to how we communicate, to recognize those feelings and allow them to be there, where if we avoid them, then it kind of makes us numb. And this is my client's gift, is that he is able to feel these feelings, and he's trying to avoid having that gift. So as we look at our own gifts, a lot of times we avoid it because it makes us different from the people around us. And we don't want to be seen as weird or too crazy, but really they are gifts. Don't you think, Tyler?
Absolutely. And I think the only thing that stops us from seeing the gift is our negative emotions around it. Because I believe every single experience we're given is for our good. And the only reason it's not is if we interpret it so. So, the gift of communication that I was given growing up, at first I looked at it as a gift of crap, a gift of pain and suffering and misery and pointlessness. So that's what it was. But as I started to really unwrap the gift and see it for what it was, instead of not confronting it and letting shame and guilt hit me, as I looked at it and saw it for what it was, it's beautiful. And I'm so grateful that my parents went through these experiences, because I would not be doing what I am today if it wasn't for them helping me get there. So, yeah, and I know I've talked to so many people who have been abused, molested, raped, victimized, and they have every right to not see the gift in those experiences. It was a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. But
Yes.
if people take the time to ask the right question, which is, why was this the best thing that could have happened to me? Why was this the best thing that could have happened to me? All of a sudden, new answers start coming. Anytime you go through a dark time, one of the most powerful questions to ask is, why is this the best thing that could happen to me right now?
I love that. It really puts things in perspective. And thinking that something that's like horrible could be the best thing is amazing. And I'm having different experiences in my past coming up. And I'm like, yeah, that really was the best thing at that time. It could have been any number of any other things. But that's what I needed right then to help me grow and get on the path that I was meant to be on, and how I could be the best me. So that's a beautiful question. Do you have any other favorite questions?
Oh yeah. And here's the thing. So questions are all about context. So depending
True.
on who's listening, everything's about the context of a question. And I'm in the space of building businesses and impacting people. And so a lot of my questions are based on helping people come to decisions and helping them commit to their vision and their goals and what they're really, working towards. Yet in a marriage, it's the same principle, just a different context, or with your children or with a friend. Same principles apply in all areas. It's just a different context and different way to phrase it. So here's the number one insight I have on asking good questions. Number one, there is no perfect question. There is no perfect question.
That's
This
right.
caught me up so much. I literally, when I first started my business, I was like, there's got to be like the secret questions to ask to get people to really take action. So I studied and I read all these books and took all these courses. And what the books and the courses did, they gave me some examples of good questions, which I have plenty of those. But what they really did was it gave me the confidence to trust myself. It gave me the confidence to trust myself. And that is what asking good questions starts with, is trusting yourself. People who don't trust themselves stumble over their words, they make their conversations awkward, and the recipient feels it, and they react. But if you trust yourself and you trust your intuition and allow your higher power or universe, whatever your belief system is, to facilitate the questions, then the power and the magic happens because you actually listen to the people. And that is more important than asking good questions. It's listening to what they're really saying so that the questions you ask matter and land. So there is no perfect question, and it just depends on, the context.
That's beautiful. That's so true. And also this trusting, if we don't trust that they're going to hear us, then we sometimes shut ourselves down. We don't ask questions because we don't trust ourselves enough to express that emotion of caring and listening, that we want to know what they have to say, and wanting them to trust that we're genuinely interested in their answers. That is a great tip. Have you ever been really surprised by an answer when you listened?
All the time.
I'm always surprised.
all the time, because when you're in tune and you trust yourself, and the second piece is trusting the other person. Too many of us want to give. And the moment you trust yourself and you trust the other person, you ask the question, you grow. And so it always surprises me because that's where growth occurs.
Yes, growth. And that's what we want our relationships, every relationship. We want it to grow. We don't want it to wither and die. We want to grow them. We'll talk more about that after the break. I'm your host, Lydia Taggart. This is Layers of Communication, and we are visiting with Tyler J. Watson today on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. We accept your calls at 1-866-451-1451, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back to Layers of Communication. I'm your host, Lydia Taggart, and we are on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. We accept your calls at 1-866-451-1451, and today we are visiting with Tyler Watson about questions, quality questions. Before the break, Tyler was talking with me about there is no perfect question. What we need to do is increase the confidence and trust we have in ourselves, and also the trust of the other person, that we can trust the other person. And we were just starting to talk about how we're surprised when we listen. If we truly listen, then we grow from the answers that the people we're talking with give us. And that listening is so key. Tyler, do you have a tip on how to listen? Because I think that's one of the challenges we have is we don't know how to listen anymore in this day and age.
Yes. So here's an example. Well, I'll just share with you the whole process, if that's okay.
That's great.
This is what I call following the thread. And this is what I believe is one of the most important skill sets on the planet, whether you have a business or not. If you are a human being and you communicate, then this is the most important skill in marriage and business and everything. And it's called following the thread. And just to give you some perspective, so the thread, imagine that, you've seen a tapestry, right? Like these tapestry, however you want to call it. That has beautiful picture on the front. And then on the back, what is it? It's got all these little gnarly threads, right? And there's no picture, there's no rhyme or reason, it's just a bunch of threads. Well, imagine that every human being is a tapestry. And on the inside of us are all these threads, black, blue, red, white, yellow, all sorts of them. And the threads are represented by our words and our definitions of those words. Every single person defines a word slightly differently. So for me, good might mean one thing. For you, good might mean something else.
Yes.
Bad, same. Excellent, also different interpretations. Some of them might be similar, but some of them might actually be very, very different. For example, love. Love has a meaning for me that could be completely different from someone else. For someone who has been abused and hurt, love means pain. Love means sorrow. Love means sadness. For someone who's in a great relationship, love means bliss. Love means kindness. Love means connected, and so many other things. So we base our interpretations off of our experiences. That's why this technique, following the thread, is so important. Because most people on the planet, when someone asks a question or someone's communicating, we judge the person based off of our own personal threads, not theirs. That is why miscommunication happens. Because if you ask good questions and you listen and you truly follow the thread of their conversation without implying or trying to force your own interpretations on them, you will get to a place of understanding. Where understanding occurs, healing happens. And that's the beauty behind communication is if you truly communicate and you connect, then healing occurs when that connection happens. And it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful process. So does that make sense so far, kind of the perspective to this?
Yes, and I agree on the understanding leading to healing. It's just so exciting to see my client that I had this last week. I can't wait to visit with him again this next week and see how much he's healed in his relationships because of so many new understandings that he's had. And that's my favorite thing is to heal our relationships. So go ahead, tell us more, Tyler.
So the process of following the thread consists of approximately about 8 steps. So I'm just going to kind of go over them kind of fast, and we'll kind of dive into the ones that, and we might do an example for you guys. So number 1 is ask. Ask. And it could be anything. You could ask, hey, how's it going? How's your day? How's the weather? How are you? Just ask. So if I ask you, Lydia, like, hey, how's it going? What might you say?
Fantastic.
Fantastic. Sweet. So what's been fantastic about today?
Oh, today the sun is shining, the air is clear, I'm on time to my show, we're going Christmas shopping, lots to look forward to, just no worries, no problems. Everything is fantastic.
Great. Fantastic. Okay, so number 1, ask. Number 2, listen. And these are so basic, yet we don't do them. So ask and listen. So I was listening for what you were saying. Then I repeated back. Step 3 is to repeat. So step 1, ask. Step 2, listen. Step 3 is repeat. So I simply repeated, and I was like, oh, fantastic. I could have said, oh, that's great. And then most people do that. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that you're having a great day. And they don't even use they don't even use the words that the other people use. I'm so glad you're having a good day. No, you said fantastic day. Don't downplay it, right? So It's like we need to listen, actually listen to people, which if anybody's listening right now, the one thing I want you to get is to truly listen. And if you think you're a good listener, take it to the next level. Ask yourself the question, how can I become a master listener? What else can I do to improve my listening skills? Always, always, always be working on becoming a better listener, because that is how you're going to truly make an impact. That's how you're going to truly connect to people and love them for who they are. So listen, ask, listen, repeat back to what they say. And then, dun, 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 you actually ask again using the same words that they used. So it's a simple process so far. Ask, listen, repeat, and then relate. Sorry, the 4th step is relate. And that can be done in a simple statement. So when you said fantastic, I simply repeated back to you, oh, fantastic. That's awesome. And then I did the next step, which is to ask again. So ask, listen, repeat, relate, ask. And then we'll continue there because I want you guys to get this process.
Wonderful. Yeah, it is a great process. And I love how you're saying to truly listen. We ask ourselves questions as well. We'll continue this conversation after our break. I'm your host, Lydia Taggart. We're visiting today with Tyler Watson. This is Layers of Communication on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Stay close. All right. This is Lydia Taggart. I'm your host for Layers of Communication on BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. We're visiting with Tyler Watson about truly listening and the 8 steps of following the thread. So we were just on the step of relating. Go ahead and tell us more about that, Tyler.
Great. So again, it's step 1, ask, step 2, listen, step 3, repeat, and then relate. So you can relate 2 ways. One is just kind of repeating back what they said and adding a little bit of your commentary. And then the second way is to actually share a story that relates to the person. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. So ask, listen, repeat, relate, and then you ask again. So you basically cycle through that process. So ask, listen, repeat, relate, and then you're going to cycle that whole process again, where you ask, listen, repeat, relate. So with Lydia, she said fantastic. And then when I asked her, what's made it fantastic, she shared with me a couple reasons. And she shared with me, oh, well, I made it on time to my show. It's a beautiful day. And she mentioned a couple different things like that. So immediately, here's what I know. Anytime someone shares something great, it implies that there's something that has been going on in the past. So immediately I know she showed up late to her interview before, or that it's been a worry of hers. Otherwise, she wouldn't even have mentioned that it was something fantastic. So that implies to me that time is important to her, and that she's probably really busy all the time and doing things, multitasking, like busy. So that gives me an idea of some good questions that I could ask if I wanted to serve her at the highest level. The second thing is that she mentioned that it was a beautiful day. So I know that the weather has probably been on her mind lately. So either like allergies have been bothering her in the past, or maybe like since we live here in Utah, smog's probably been bothering her, or it affects her, or she watches it. It's important to her health. And that gives me some insight of who she is as well, some great questions that I could ask there. So immediately, just by that one question, I now have like 6 to 8 questions that I could ask her to follow these threads. Now, I could continue just on this fantastic piece. But if I wanted to get to step 8, which the final step is to commit to something. Now, this is in a business world, right? If I want to help someone make a choice or commit, but also in a relationship. If you want to help somebody commit to changing or to doing something exciting in their life. Like I do the same process with my family, just slight variations, because this works no matter who you are. But anyway, back to this. So let's say I'm talking to Lydia and she shares how fantastic day, fantastic this. So now I'm listening again and I want to relate. So I would share a little story. So I could share something that there's 2 ways I could take this. I could take it down to a negative for myself. I could share a time in my life where I could say like, oh, well, I'm so glad that you're having a fantastic day. And it seems like, showing up on time to your podcasts or your interview is important. And then I could share something of mine where I haven't showed up before and how it made me feel. And then I could ask questions to dive into some problems that she might be going through to help her form some solutions. That's one way to take it. So that would be me sharing a story about a problem I'm going through that relates to what she said. That's one way. The second way would be to actually take it to a place of further inspiration. So I could say, oh my gosh, like fantastic. Yeah, for me also I've had, it's been a fantastic morning. I woke up early and I learned that I can put colloidal silver in my diffuser, which has been awesome for our breathing to get rid of this smog that's all around us. And I could go on like that and kind of relate that way. Then I could ask her another question. So what else are you doing today? Just any question to continue the conversation. But my goal is that I want to lead her to take action on something, whether it's something she's struggling with, whether it's, talking to me about doing something together, whether it's just to do something kind for her family. But I want to lead people to action. And that's the whole point of conversation for me, is that I want to lead people to take action, because I know if they take action on anything, it's going to help them grow in their life. So ask, listen, repeat, relate. Ask, listen, repeat, relate. Then you share a story of a pain or of a triumph, and you lead them to take action. And that's a simple follow the thread process, as fast as I could teach it in 10 minutes or less.
Awesome. I super love that. And the action, like I was saying in the intro, when you're down in that pit, you just have to do something about it. So we can help people through our conversations and get us moving, doing something. I love that. And Tyler, we're we're just about wrapping up your turn on the show. Will you tell our audience how they can continue this conversation with you, where they can find you?
Sure. So if you guys want to get plugged in, if you'd like to just hear a little bit more about what we're doing and get some free content, go to tylerfb.com. tylerfb.com. So FB like Facebook. tylerfb.com, and you'll join what's called the Enrollment Masters. And in that group, I post all the time. I do Facebook Lives, I do challenges, and help people master the process of communicating, specifically in that group, to grow a business and to impact your relationships. So that's the easiest way, tylerfb.com.
Awesome, Tyler. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I love all of our conversations that we've ever had. I'm so glad that I know you, and I'm so glad you could come and share with our audience today at tylerfb.com. And also you can find me at lydiataggart.com, and we'll talk more about that after the break. This is Layers of Communication. I'm your host, Lydia Taggart, on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Welcome back. I'm your host, Lydia Taggart, for Layers of Communication. And we are on TuneIn Radio and the BBM Global Network. Today we've been talking about taking action. And following that thread, Tyler Watson was sharing his goal is always to lead someone to take action on something. I really appreciate and love that whole concept, because that's what I agree on that so much, where we're stuck, we're fretting, we're in resentment, any kind of feeling or emotion that we're in, we want to get out of it. And the key is to do something about it. If we're just going to complain about it, we're digging that hole deeper. We're trampling on that neural pathway, on that old story that's not serving us, and making that groove in our brain deeper and deeper. And the longer we tread on that trail, the harder it's going to get out of that groove and into the path that can be better for us. So taking action, and we can just choose what we want. And it doesn't even have to be something big or crazy. We don't have to go out and, do our whole giant, enormous thing. It can be something simple like brushing our teeth differently. We'll take our neural pathways in a different place if we change just a simple thing. And when we change one thing, it's going to change everything, because we are connected in such an intricate way in our lives, our emotions, our physical being. Let's just do that. Let's brush our teeth from one side that we start on. Let's change it to the other side. If we start brushing on the bottom, let's brush on the top. We'll get our brains tuned into this idea that we can change, we can do something different. And it can really make a big difference. By small and simple things, great things are brought to pass. So many cliche things that we can say right here of every journey begins with a step, and all those other things. You can fill in the blanks with that. One of the things that I really loved about what Tyler shared with us today is that there are no perfect questions. I want to add to that and say there are no bad questions. If we can live in the space of curiosity, it takes out all the blame, all of the worries. If we're like, well, I wonder what that meant. I wonder why that happened. I wonder what else it could mean. That's one of my favorite things too, as Tyler was sharing about how we interpret the stories from our point of view. We interpret the definition of the words that people are using from where we stand. Just like we've talked about before, our layers of experience are what we're looking through. We can see differently than anybody else. Nobody else has the same layers that we see through. If we can take the context of the question and make sure that we're matching to where the other person is coming from, see what their interpretation is on it, and just be curious, what else could that mean? That's one of my favorite questions too. But there's no bad questions. You can ask a question to anybody, anytime, and if they don't understand how to answer your question, that's a learning time for them. Don't be afraid to ask questions to yourself and to other people. I loved also that he brought up how we ask ourselves, how can I become a master listener? How can I get better at this? If you'd like to have more information on how I could help you get to become more proficient in asking questions and listening, you can join us in the frame training at lydiataggart.com. And if you want to send us a question or anything specific to the radio show, our email address is radio@lydiataggart.com. So really, really listen to your heart. Listen to what is inside. Sometimes we get stuck in our head and we have to fix it, but we don't really have to fix something if it's not broken. And sometimes we think that we're broken when you're really not. Our experiences can be all for good. One of the questions that Tyler shared with us is, why was this the best thing that could happen to me right now? You're not broken. You're awesome. Keep up the good work. Have a great holiday. Next week we'll be having Christmas and we'll be using a rerun. So stay tuned with lydiataggart.com, and we'll see you next time in 2 weeks. Have a great holiday. Bye.
You've been listening to Layers of Communication with your host, Lydia Taggart. Tune in next week as we break through the layers in order to communicate and connect down to your core on Lydia Taggart's Layers of Communication.